Hello and welcome to this video where I want to talk about DKP loot systems in World of Warcraft Classic. So what is a DKP loot system and how does it work? Well, DKP is an abbreviation for Dragon Kill Points, and a DKP loot system is an auction type player invented loot system. So it's not a default in-game system, it's something that players outside the game has developed and is using, and it uses points to distribute loot in raids. So loot is awarded to the group member that offers the highest number of points, of DKP points, and bidding continues, so bidding increases until everyone except the final winner of the loot has passed, and then that group member with the highest points bid will receive the loot in question, and the number of points that that person bid will be deducted from their their total points. So if everyone passes on a loot or an item, it will typically go to the organization, community, or guild. I'm just going to refer to that as a group from now on, which organizes the raid. And to use the DKP loot system in World of Warcraft Classic, you're going to use the in-game loot system, which is Master Looter, and then the Master Looter will keep track separately of everyone, how much points they have, and keep track of the bidding and subtracting values from one item and etc. So let's just run through a quick example of what this looks like. So let's say we're raiding with our group in Blackwing Lair, BWL, and we're at the boss Chromagus, and Chromagus is defeated by our group, and the epic sword, chromatically tempered sword, drops. Okay, we have a DKP loot system in our raid, so we're gonna figure out who's gonna receive this item. So we'll have a player 1 that bid 10 DKP, player 2 will bid 11, player 3 will bid 12, player 1 comes back, bid 13. Now player 3 stops bidding, they either don't have enough points to continue bidding, or they don't think it's worth that cost. So player 3 basically taps out and passes. But player 2 is still in the game. Player 2 goes up to 14 DKP. Player 1 bids 15, and then player 2 taps out. It's like, hey, either I don't have enough points or it's too expensive. And so we're left with player 1, and the last bid was 15 DKP by player 1. So player 1 wins the item for 15 DKP. So the Master Looter will give the item to player 1, and in some sort of separate spreadsheet outside the game, they will mark down 15 DKP to be deducted from player 1's total DKP amount that they have accumulated. So the points work kind of just like money, but the only difference is that you're not trading in-game currency, but you are trading points, which is tracked outside of the game. So the most important aspects of a DKP system is, 1, how DKP is earned, and 2, how DKP is lost. So in its simplest form, DKP is earned by attending raids. So you get X points per, so X points are awarded to each player per raid attended. So let's say I attend a Blackwing Lair raid, I will get X number of points for attending that raid, and then I attend a Molten Core raid with the same group, and then I get awarded X amount of DKP points for attending that one. And then in the most basic form, DKP is lost by spending it. Well, you can basically spend it on anything that drops, and you can just bid against anyone else that also wants that item. So DKP is lost by spending it freely on any item that drops during the raid. Now, almost no system is just that simple. There will typically be class restrictions, which means if you can't equip an item and it's bind on pickup, will not be allowed to bid on it, even if you have DKP. So that's a very typical restriction, because being able to take items that you can't use from someone else that can use it is typically not something that any group wants to have happen in their group. That's going to create a lot of drama and anger and resentment, and probably be very bad for group cohesion. So, however, many or most groups use DKP systems that have additional mechanics around how DKP can be earned, and as well as restrictions on how it can be spent. So let's just look at earning DKP. So different raids attended. This is just an example of one DKP system that a group may have. So in this scenario, different raids attended award different amounts of DKP. Certain raids require more effort and organization to successfully complete, both before, during, and after the raid. And DKP is used as the incentive for the group members to show up to the raids, but also to incentivize players to attend the more difficult raids, which require more effort. More DKP may be awarded for attendance. So, like in this example, the easier raids like CG, AQ20, and Onyxia will give you 1 DKP points for attending that, while Molten Core, MC, will give you 2 points. Blackwing Lair, BWL, will give you 3 points. AQ40 will give you 4 points. And Nax, the most difficult and requires the most preparation before and after, preparation before and then work after, will give you 5 DKP points. This is just an example, but I'm illustrating what some groups may do to basically incentivize participation in a more challenging and time-consuming content. Okay, and then some other things on earning DKP. So DKP may be earned by any number of actions, which are determined by the group that organizes the raid. And some examples of this are, for example, if you attend 4 raids consecutively, like 4 raids back to back, you may be getting a bonus, so a certain X amount of DKP as a bonus for attending 4 in a row. You may be getting DKP as a bonus if you're the highest damage dealer during a raid, or if you're the highest healer, you're outputting the most heals in a raid. If you're the top decurser, if you're the top dispeller, maybe if you bring certain consumables and use them during the raid. Maybe you're getting the DKP for unbooting, which is basically releasing world buffs that you have stored, which you have to collect in advance of the raid. That's going to take time for you. So maybe the raid wants to incentivize people to show up with world buffs and unboon, because that's going to make the raid easier for everyone. These are the things that different groups may award DKP points for. Now, more complicated DKP systems may better incentivize certain behavior for the players that overall benefits the groups, but there are downsides in making more complicated DKP systems. One is it's a more burdensome system to manage and track for the group leader or leaders. It's more difficult and burdensome to navigate for all the players that attend the raids in the group. And the more rules you have, the more it just increases the opportunity to have conflicts and disagreement in the group, which can hurt group cohesion. I mean, that's not a universal truth, but in general, if you make a system that's more complicated, it's going to have more unintended consequences, more edge cases, and just more opportunities in general for conflict and disagreement. And it can also appear very overwhelming to new players, which could hurt your recruitment efforts. Like if a new player joins in and they see this 10-page document explaining all the different loot rules and how you can earn DKP and how you can lose DKP, and it's like they may be like, yeah, this is not for me. This is way too much. First of all, too much effort to learn, and seems like way too much effort to raid with and have to follow. Now, losing DKP. So typically, certain items that drop are automatically awarded to the group itself and cannot be purchased using DKP points. So one example of such an item would be the Elementium ore that drops in the Blackwing Lair raid, BWL. So, for example, if that drops, the master looter might just keep that to themselves and keep it in the group bank or use for group purposes. So that may be an item that is restricted. It's just reserved for the group. You can't use DKP on that item even if you have a lot of DKP. Also, there may be a minimum bid increment when using DKP, meaning that the next bid needs to be at least X higher than the previous bid. So an example for that would be, let's say the minimum bid increment is 10 DKP. It has to increase by 10 DKP every time the bid increases. So let's say player 1 bids 10 DKP. Then player 2 will have to bid a minimum of 20 DKP. So 10 plus 10 is 20. Then player 1 still wants that item, and they have enough DKP, so they're going to bid the next minimum amount, which is going to be 30, 20 plus 10. And then maybe player two is like taps out. I don't want to. That's too expensive, or I don't have enough. And then player one wins that item, and they win it for the last bid amount, which was 30 DKP. So player one wins the item for 30 DKP, and then 30 DKP is deducted or removed from player one's accumulated pool of points, probably collected in or held in some sort of spreadsheet outside the game, just like you would trade in-game currency for the item if you were running a GDKP, Gold Dragon Kill Point system. And if two or more players bid the same amount of DKP, the player will be determined by random number generator. So that's just one type of system. Let's say both players have the same amount of DKP and they're just bidding the same amount. In this scenario, there wouldn't be like a minimum increment type of thing where it will be like a race to like the order of your bidding wouldn't matter. And let's say you both are just bidding, your everything that you have, or maybe it's less than everything you have. Just let's say both have 50 DKP and both are willing to bid 20. They might not be depending on the group, they might not have a different rule for tie breaking like that, where we just require someone to bid more than the other, otherwise it goes to the group or gets disenchanted. They may have basically a rule where you say if two or more players bid exactly the same amount of DKP, we're just going to do an RNG, a random number generator, like a slash roll in the chat, and you roll between 1 and 100, and you just gamble for it, basically. So in summary, DKP is an abbreviation for Dragon Kill Points. This is an auction type player invented, so it's not in the game loot system that uses points to distribute loot in raids. So loot is awarded to the group member that offers the highest number of points, and bidding increases until everyone except the winner of the loot has passed, and that group member that won the bid receives the loot in question and is deducted the points that the winning bid amount. So then that's the cost of that item. And if everyone passes on the loot, it will typically go to the group itself that organizes the raid. Typically a vendor sold to a vendor, or disenchanted if it's a bind and pickup item that has no other value. And the in-game loot system that is used to run a DKP raid is the master looting system. So there will be a master looter in the raid that is collecting all the drops over whatever threshold that's the master looter is set to during that raid, and will be handing out items and managing how much DKP everyone has, how much they're spending, all that kind of stuff. And so the basic, in the simplest form or the most basic rules for earning and losing DKP is going to be DKP is earned by attending raids, X amount of points awarded to each player per raid attended, and then 2, DKP is lost by spending it freely on any item that drops during the raid. However, most groups have more restrictions than this, and the options for making different rules are basically endless. It's just limited by the creativity of the group, but there are downsides in making very complicated systems, not only for the leadership to manage, but also for the players to operate within and manage as well. So that's what I wanted to share. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you find this information helpful.